Letitia James. Letitia baby's going to be out as Attorney General, likely to be voted out. I'm looking at these poll numbers, and I mean, she kind of barely had a shot as it was. She was already suffering. I'm just going to tell you, she was really kind of struggling in the last go around. And now you got the state of New York that I'm telling you is not as liberal or anti-Trump as New York City. And as a result of that, you know what? They're going to vote her out. They're going to vote her out. I mean, New York City is not as important as it once was. And this is what the City Journal just came out with this week. Letitia James's campaign is on the ropes. I mean, I don't even know how they're going to have any money, right? Because who wants to donate to a woman who's about to go to prison for 30 years because of falsifying, allegedly, her mortgage application documents? She's at odds also with like one of the big issues. So Siena College did this poll, and what they found was that the majority of New Yorkers were very comfortable and very much for the deportation of illegal immigrants. And yet that is not something Letitia James believes in at all. So just to go through some of the numbers with you, 79% of the people in New York that would be voting Letitia out, they back deporting immigrants that have been convicted of a crime. Don't forget, Letitia is trying to prevent ICE from getting into Rikers. Fortunately, the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, worked with Tom Homan, and what do you know? ICE is back at Rikers Island, so they're able to do their job there. But it's in this sort of defiance of what Letitia James has going on. 39% back deporting immigrants with no criminal record. 42% opposed that, but 39% backed it. And then the rest of them kind of don't really know, or they don't want to say. 59% do not want taxpayers paying for migrants' medical care. I mean, that's a biggie. You're talking about basically 60%, let's call it, right? Only 26% were in favor, and the others didn't want to say or didn't know. So when you have the majority of New Yorkers saying, you know what, we don't want to pay for somebody else's medical care, Letitia, you're once again at odds with the rest of your state. 48% support federal efforts to deport all illegal migrants. Only 31% oppose it. You know, this deportation of illegal migrants is becoming such an issue. You know, those in New York City that may support Letitia James, oh, they're very particular with their language. Like this lady on CNN, who's just terrible at her job, by the way. Like she almost doesn't have all the wires connecting upstairs, which is really funny when you see Stephen Miller actually go on with her. Oh, this is great. Okay, but this is the point on immigration. Remember where New Yorkers are. They want illegals that are here and have committed a crime deported. They want even illegals that are here illegally deported. And so Stephen Miller gets into it with the CNN lady.
I am, and that's why I said that. I clarified that.
You said undocumented, and I wasn't clear what that means. I'm assuming they have a fake ID. I'm assuming they have a fake social security number.
That's neither here nor there. That's getting away from the question,
country.
Stephen. I want this to be, and call me naive, a good faith discussion about what's happening right now.
But when we use language that's designed to obscure the truth, that's not good faith.
An
illegal alien is an illegal alien. They're not an undocumented migrant.
Okay, that's fine. That's another discussion for another day.
Another discussion for another day. Oh, believe me, they keep going at it. I'm actually going to show you a few more clips from Stephen Miller because they're just unbelievable, and you got to see them. But there's going to be a lot of Stephen Miller. So if you're not a Stephen Miller fan in this show, watch out because we get a few more really priceless moments coming from him. He was on the airwaves, all over the airwaves this morning. And obviously with the immigration news, that's a big deal. But again, I want to get back to these poll numbers because as you look at these, they're really softening. And this is what the City Journal is now reporting because they're looking at her vis-a-vis Kathy Hochul. They also actually brought up an interesting thing. And, you know, for what it's worth, take it for what it's worth. They're saying that Andrew Cuomo, if he's elected mayor of New York, and their belief is that he will, so, you know, take that again with a grain of salt, but that he's going to make her life absolutely miserable because they are political rivals and he doesn't like Letitia James. And don't forget, she was the one who was sort of trying to put the nail in his coffin back when he was going down as a result of some of that 2020 stuff and, you know, the charges with women, etc. So no love lost there. So she's going to have the political odds effectively stacked against her leading the City Journal to say, they don't think that she's going to make it. And I think that, when you sum up all these big issues that are plaguing New York right now, and then you look at her history of challenges and sort of where she has been on some of these issues that politically are just not aligned, especially when it comes to immigration with the rest of New York, then she's going to have some big problems, right? I found this the other day, and I wanted to share this with you. When she was riding high after she had gotten that $500 million verdict against one Donald Trump, she came out with a very interesting statement. And I think this is going to come back to haunt her in a huge way as we see that case move forward with her grand jury indictment coming any day now because of the alleged mortgage fraud. She said something really clever. She said, when powerful people cheat to get better loans, this is her talking about Trump, it comes at the expense of honest and hardworking people. Everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank, to get a mortgage, to buy a home. And if they did, our government would throw the book at them. There simply cannot be different rules for different people. Now, Donald Trump is finally facing accountability for his lying, cheating, and staggering fraud. Because no matter how big, rich, or powerful you think you are, no one is above the law. Wow, this is like poetic. I mean, wow, Tishy, honey, it's like you wrote it for yourself, right? I mean, she's using federal taxpayer dollars. That's the kicker in all this. I mean, at least he may have inflated his square foot edge on some of his properties, and he may have thought it was worth one thing when she thinks it's worth another. I'm going to go with what the bank thinks, right? In that case, because they're the ones taking on the risk and the loan. But in the case of Letitia James, she's actually using your money, federal taxpayer dollars, to fund her alleged mortgage fraud, and therein lies the problem. The director of the Federal Housing Authority, one William Pulte, came out the other day. This is relatively new sound. I think we did play it for you as soon as it came out, but I love this because he's pointing out that he knows what mortgage fraud is, and Letitia is guilty.
Recommended that the DOJ investigate New York Attorney General Letitia James over alleged mortgage fraud. The AG, Letitia James, has responded. We don't have the video, but here's the quote. "This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia resident. And prior to that, I indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. They just took the power of attorney, and they're using that as a basis for enforcement of their investigation." Bill, do you know why she said she was a resident of Virginia on the power of attorney, if, in fact, she wasn't?
Well, I know that we are mortgage experts, and we only refer things that we think are mortgage fraud, and we stand 100% behind the letter. I'll let the letter speak for itself. I do know, and I have seen some reports from that subject, from that subject's criminal defense lawyer, saying certain things. I'll leave it to the DOJ to correct various things. But again, when we see mortgage fraud, we are going to report it. When we see mortgage fraud, we are going to prosecute it within the confines of our duties. And we are not going to be intimidated by a subject's criminal defense lawyer. We are not going to be intimidated by a politician or just because you have an Esquire behind your name. We are not going to be intimidated by people. If we see mortgage fraud, we're going to do something about it. And I think that you're going to see us be taking this on in a big way. Mortgage fraud is a big problem. These companies are safe and sound, but where we see it, we are going to do something about it. And that subject's case is no different.
Well, what are the ramifications of this now that you've referred this for criminality to the DOJ?
Well, I would refer that to the DOJ. Again, as I say, we spend our days, we are mortgage experts. We are not politicians. I view this as an academic job. Obviously, the president can fire me at any time. So I guess in that way. But look, I look at this as an independent agency. We found the mortgage fraud, whether it be that particular subject or other subjects, and we work actively with the DOJ and different law enforcement.
Wow. Okay. So I love how he calls her the subject. All right. Let's get to those poll numbers. Here, I want to show you what they're saying because she's just not in very good shape. I mean, she's basically, everybody keeps talking about Chuck Schumer. everybody keeps talking about Chuck Schumer, and what I just want to say, and how he's just in such bad shape, and gosh, AOC can make a run for it. Look at her. She's doing a lot worse than Chuck Schumer. The 40% favorable rating that she's getting, it's coming entirely from New York City. Okay, but then you look at unfavorable, that's pretty high at 33%. And then you look at the 27% that don't know, and you add those up, you're looking at 60%. Okay, this is very different than in 22. She's looking at a whole different set of numbers right now. So yeah, I have every expectation that Letitia James is going to be voted out in New York. And a lot of it is because of what she did to Donald Trump and how people are perceiving that. A lot of it is because of where she stands on immigration and how at odds she is with the rest of the state. And a lot of it is because a lot of people are just not going to want somebody who was lying on her federal loan applications, allegedly, when she was trying to go after Donald Trump for that. Now, she's saying, oh, this is just a technicality. It's just a technicality, nothing to see here. I beg to differ when you look at the succession, right? The succession of alleged crimes, as Stephen Miller also pointed out this week.
One of the most corrupt, shameless individuals ever to hold public office. She's guilty not only of those crimes, but of countless more crimes, by using and abusing your public office to try to persecute an innocent man, depriving him of his rights, engaging in a conspiracy to obstruct our election, and to overthrow our democratic processes and procedures. She is guilty of multiple significant serial criminal violations.
You better believe it. Joe Burnell, thank you for the generosity. You better believe we're going for 1 million here on this channel. 800 some odd thousand subs, 1 million, 2 million. Here we come. Yeah, you know what? I have a feeling Letitia's, Letitia's tushy. How do you like that? Tishy's tushy is going to be in prison, okay? Because this is a big deal. It carries up to 30 years. And when he's talking about a serial criminal aspect to this, you think about putting down on that mortgage application. I'm sorry, she's a lawyer. She can tell us, oh, it was just a power of attorney, all she wants. She's trying to say it's her principal residence as recently as 2023, when she was in the middle of the litigation against Donald Trump. I mean, come on, Tishy. Those in glass houses, shall we say, should not be throwing stones. Take a look at the house that that she was in, okay? This Norfolk, Virginia house. That's the house in question. Then there's the brownstone in Brooklyn. When we say, serial violator, potentially 2001, she's owned that house since, and she's been saying it's 4 levels instead of 5 because you get a better rate on the mortgage because you qualify for federal funds. Woo! And then there's this one, 1983. I realize it was a while ago, but who the heck puts yourself down as your dad's wife just because you want to buy a place, right? This is all adding up to a huge amount of trouble. The media is mad at her. Voters are mad at her. She will be voted out. Look at this. New York Magazine, of all things, we've been talking about this, how even the liberal parts of New York, media members in New York are turning on her because they know Letitia is out. I mean, one of the interesting things that they write is in this particular piece, it's a fact beyond reasonable dispute that Letitia James weaponized her official power as New York's Attorney General to pursue Donald Trump for political purposes. Okay, so when they're saying that, I have a feeling it's pretty bad, not to mention that they talk about how she got this massive $500 million fine against him. It does need to be thrown out. But she was, quote, wildly inappropriate in her out-of-court statements. Things that would ordinarily, they say, get a prosecutor fired. And yet she was allowed to get away with this? Come on. I mean, even when the court knew that this is all ridiculous, right? They even voiced all that skepticism. They said it over and over. Here's one of the judges. I mean, this is a private transaction. Why the heck are you bringing it to us? Period.
It was using...
I'm sorry, but what's being described sounds an awful lot like a potential commercial dispute between private actors.
Well, to go back to the first question about whether there's other examples of this, there are other examples of this. In the First American case, the Attorney General brought a 6312 case where the transaction at issue was between a very big bank, Wells Fargo, and a professional appraisal firm.
But it wasn't wasn't the concern there that the public would ultimately be negatively impacted and affected by.
And in this particular case, it's a confined, smaller transaction where you actually have no victims, and the bank said they'd do the loan again 10 times over. So now the Eastern District of Virginia has issued those subpoenas, and one can expect that an indictment is coming momentarily as this grand jury investigation begins. One of the most amazing parts of it all, though, is that she is so sort of tone deaf, again, to the voters who are going to vote her out, that she's out there trying to take their money to cover her legal expenses. Again, back to this polling information, I want to point out that Siena College Research Institute poll from earlier this year found that while James has more favorable poll numbers than Hochul, Kathy Hochul, she's definitely out, her 40 to 33% favorable, unfavorable split is actually worse than one would expect for a Democrat attorney general in the state of New York. In other words, she's really underwater as to where she should be, or even to where she previously has been. Taking a look again at those numbers, look at that. As I said, 40% favorable, 33% unfavorable, with 27% not knowing, adding up to 60%, very much in doubt. And who knows how much people are still saying in some of these polls. But this aspect to her, the fact that she's now coming forward and saying, oh, I need money, I need money, I need money, I need $10 million to fight Donald Trump for myself, for my own personally alleged misdoings, that's not going to fly. People do not like that they're going to have to cover Letitia James. Think about it. The polls show that majority of people in New York don't want to have to cover the Medicaid costs, the medical costs of any of the illegal migrants that she's fighting for. You think they want to cover her legal costs? I don't think so, especially when she's got this high-flying, high-priced attorney. Hey, why don't you just take a public defender, Tishy baby? For free, right? Because, they're cutting off her access now, the GOP is, to these funds as they should. As they should. Because why should New York taxpayers have to cough up money for Letitia James when these are issues of her own doing? Something that was brought up in the New York Post the other day, and again, even New York Magazine, which is pretty darn liberal, saying that this is really unthinkable. She has inexplicably chosen to use the resources of her public office to respond to the investigation, they write, to which I just keep saying it's poetic, it's poetic, it's poetic. It's poetic because I do recall a moment in time on ABC News where Letitia James gave a big interview saying, you know what, if he does not have the money to cover this verdict and these fines, then we will seize his assets. Remember?
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Right? It's poetic. It's sweet justice. Charlotte Lamborn, I know you're from Oregon and you've talked a lot about how there's a lot of people that are actually very conservative out there. I appreciate your generosity and your compliments on this show. Growing. Again, 813,000 strong, on our way to 1 million. Then shortly after 2 million, right? We're going to keep going as one of the top 100 podcasts. Imagine that on YouTube. It's just incredible. But I love this, right? Because it is poetic justice. Oh, we may have to seize his assets. Well, I don't know. It seems like, Tishy baby, you may have to sell some of your assets to cover your legal bills. You know why? You're facing 30 years. This is no joke. Okay, 30 years in federal prison, up to 30 years. I don't know if she'll get it, but 18 U.S.C. 1014. False statements to obtain a federally insured loan. 18 U.S.C. 1001. False statements to the government. These are serious charges, honey baby, and they come with serious consequences. We get a huge win for the administration. I want to tell you about major win on immigration coming out moments ago. Breaking news.